I would say the early 60s. I was living in Mansoura then, in that house, and I came back in 65. It was about that time, in the early 60s or something like that. It wasn't in the 70s, that was going already. Now they had a baby one like that in Simsport. You remember that? That was when I was living in Cocheville. What did they call these people that came from all over?
Are you talking about McCrae?
Correct. Did you go to that? Did you go see?
No, I did not.
I went up on a hill to see, and it was just like the Cocheville, filthy. I mean, they had a ditch that was dug, and that's why they did that business.
So, coming back to the Cochon de Lake, what was the purpose behind beginning the festival?
I don't know. Norma Lemoyne was the first queen, but I don't remember who was the first king. But it was something to sponsor and to get people to know that we were there. It was very complicated. There was a lot of money that was passed there, lots of money. There's 2 years when I first came back, I worked that money, and I never could figure out why they did that. You came in through the back, you know, the back of the, and we were right there. People were all over this place coming in and out. With all that money, there we were sitting there with all that money, and nobody said anything. But it was to, I would say it was to push Mansour a little bit. That was when Harold Criminal was there.
No, and there was and then let's talk about the foods served. You know, because this is the year of food for Louisiana tourism.
They cooked on the back porch where they still do now. And it was a big fire that was cooking just like all night, so it would be ready in time. And it was always, to me, it was always the same men who knew what they were doing, which I'm sure right now is the same thing. Simsport or Waterville, it's always the same people who know what they're doing. But it was a big deal. Now there was all kinds of other stuff. There was some jambalaya that was for sale. There was just all kind of stuff. Up by in front of the town hall, going to the back, there was always a big stage, and all the people who played in that, all the bands and stuff like that, were always there. And they played sometimes all night and sometimes not. But it was a lot of work to put on, because you had to have me to count the pennies, me to send somebody where he goes. They had a lot of people that were just involved in a lot of kind of ways, and it was a very well-run thing, I must say. Maybe some people didn't think so, but if you stop and think about the amount of people that something like that involves, it's real interesting. They had bingo, they had different things, they had rides for the children, and then they started putting it on Mother's Day. It was not on Mother's Day at that time, but they started putting it on Mother's Day, which was a good idea because a lot of people came to visit their mothers and they had a chance to come. But
so it became sort of like a homecoming for Mother's Day.
Correct, very correct. Not too long ago, my nephew, Gregory, he's dead. His wife and 2 of her children and their boyfriend and girlfriend came and spent the night in Monkey. And I asked them why they hadn't come to Marksville. We didn't realize that. So I'm sorry about you. But they came, it was like homecoming. She came from Marksville, she went to see some of her people. She came to see his people. And that was on Mother's Day. So it was really I would say one of those things that we knew that they'd be coming home.
Right, and then with all of that being said, then it became the Cochon de lait capital of the world by proclamation.
That was when it first started. When it
Yes.
first started, they had so much publicity about it. And it was all good publicity. It was very well arranged. It was very well planned. I don't know if it was Harold at that time when it started. I don't know what year he did, but he stayed a long time as mayor. But it was something that brought people there. I don't know if it's like that anymore.
Excuse me. I had some guests that came a couple of years back from Canada because we've twinned the parish of Avoyelles with a county in Canada called Bellechasse, which is right out of Quebec City. So they came to, and he specifically wanted to come to the Cochon de lait festival when he came. So I brought them there, and they were so impressed that the festival that year, which was a couple of years ago, stayed so true to its focus. Because he says, you know, when you're stepping here that you're talking about pork. Pork was the featured item at this festival. He's, you know, they ate cracklings. We did TV interviews with them. They were cooking the pigs. That was boudin. That was the greasy pig chasing contest. That was, and then there was the hog calling contest. And that's when he and his wife went absolutely. They looked at me. They said, "Oh my gosh, how true you are all to the culture and to the specifics of the food focus being pork."
The greasy pig.
The greasy pig.
My children must have been about 9, 10 years old when it first started on the greasy pig. We went, and there was 2 men. One of them's son is still alive in Mansura. They got hold of a little pig, and they would not let it go. They were tearing that pig apart, a baby pig. I jumped the fence, and I went and stopped them. I pulled the pig away from them. My children were horrified. "Mama, why did you do that?" They were killing the pig, and I didn't want to kill a pig like that. So don't fuss about it. But it surprised them when I went and pulled that pig away. But one of them's son is still alive in Mass. But all these things meant something to us. We pushed pork. Nobody talked about chicken. Never heard anything about chicken. Now, you heard a lot about grillades, and that's another story. But it was because of the pork, and it was so well done, it became famous.
And it's still cooked very well in the town of Mansura.
Let me tell you a little story about one year. You remember on Cocoville Road where the veterinarian had his place?
Correct.
It was Albritton at that time, Dr. Albritton. This man came to his office and he asked him if he could help him. He didn't see any animal with him. He says, "Yes." He says, "I have lice in my beard." "Well, I'll cut it and then you can shave." "Oh, no, you're not going to cut my beard. I'm going to the Cochon de lait." He had to go, but he went with lice. But anyway, Dr. Albritton says, "I'd have given anything to put a pair of scissors in that man's beard and say, go to the thing now."
One of the things that I've experienced with the Cochon de lait is I used to be a wedding coordinator several years ago, and the bride and groom were getting married at St. Paul's at 12 noon, I think it was, on the Saturday of the Cochon de lait festival. Beautiful, beautiful wedding. Well, when it came time for the recessional, for them to come out of the church, I opened the doors, the organist starts playing the recessional hymn, but the hog calling contest was going on at the same time, and you could hear, yeah, yeah. And I mean, the whole church burst out laughing because you couldn't hear the organ anymore. You could just hear the hog calling, and that's what they walked out to,
That's great.
is to the hog calling contest. And I mean, it was just, I mean, the whole church exploded at that point, just hearing that hog calling contest, calling the bride and the groom out of the church.
That must have been fun.
It was, that was a great experience.
The front porch. Years ago, you washed your supper dishes, and you came on the front porch. Your neighbors came and met you. They talked about who's sick, who didn't come to the party last week, whose children are not doing well in school. They knew their neighbors.
It was a sense of community.
And the children were playing in the yard outside.
So, Ms. Barbara, we'll go back to the Cochon de Lait. Like several other festivals, like I know in Marksville and Cottonport, they had the Easter egg knocking, and you know, in the spring, Cochon de Lait. I don't remember what time of the year it originally started, but then it moved back to the to Mother's Day weekend. Bunkie had its corn festival during harvest time. So, what do you think was the contributing factor to start these festivals?
Contributing factor for what?
To start these festivals. Why were these festivals started? Was it a form of entertainment? Economy?
Well, you can forget the economy. They spend money like there's no end to it. That's the way I see it.
Right, but I'm talking about in the 50s and the 60s here in the parish. I'm seeing where maybe they are.
We were closer. We knew our neighbors. We knew what problems they were having. Wilbert has gallbladder trouble. Poor Wilbert. They're gonna have to do surgery on him or something. We knew all those things, and we were concerned with them. Nowadays, you think somebody's concerned about if I have gallbladder trouble or something? Don't worry about that.
Well, I think also there was more a sense of family unity, because the families really, they weren't scattered all over the country as they are today.
And the families were bigger.
Other than like the military people. Because I remember myself as a child, every Sunday you went to grandma's house for lunch. And it was a large family. My mother and them were like 7 children. And then they brought their children, and my grandmother cooked every Sunday. She never knew who'd show up. She just cooked, and basically whoever could come that Sunday, because sometimes you were going to the other grandmother's house. And that's just how it was. But then it was like everybody would talk all the time. I mean, people, you know, you ate, and then most of the time the ladies stayed in the kitchen around the table and drank coffee. The guys were normally, my dad and them were laying down on the porch with a brick under their head as a pillow, and us kids were playing outside. We were playing baseball or just different. There was more that sense of family and community.
I'm going to ask you a question. How did you learn French?
I learned French, let's see, back in the late 50s by talking with my grandparents. Because at the time when Mother and Dad were both working, there were no daycares, there were no babysitters, so you stayed with the grandparents.
None of that, honey.
And they only spoke French. So that's how my sister and I learned to speak French. And then when we went to school, but by the time we got to school, we were speaking English as well. So, and it has just stayed with me. I find that French is a beautiful language. So we have just stayed with us, and what that has done for us is wonderful.
There's a lady that's still alive in Marksville. when she started school at Our Lady of Victory, that's a long time ago, she could not say one word in English. Not one word could she say in English. And the sisters taught her how to speak in English. But learning French, this is how I learned. Mom and Daddy and Junior and Johnson, we all ate at the same table at the same time. And they talked French and they discussed her sex life with a man and something. You learned all of that. Mm-hmm. And I was playing on the floor, had a good listening. Every year Daddy would ask Mama what I was getting for Christmas in French, and she'd answer in French. It was during the Depression, and he asked one day, and she told him I was getting new clothes for my old doll. That didn't sit good with me. I wanted a new doll, and I wasn't interested in new clothes. I wanted a new doll. So I said something. My brother asked me, what is it that you don't want? I don't want a new doll. I don't want a new clothes. I want a new doll. Daddy asked me, he says, how long have you known? I said, 3 years. Why didn't you say something? I said, because it didn't bother me what y'all were giving me. That was the end of that. They didn't talk about stuff anymore in front of me. But you think a kid would take time like that, 3 years, to try to figure out what they're talking about? Not today. He'll do this, though. It's the difference. The difference is you're so, now they're so intent on these things. And I tell you what, I worry about AI. That's scary. Very scary. But we had more fun, we had more time. A telephone. Right behind the drugstore was a little wooden house. 2 sisters, Gloria and Teresa, ran the telephone company. And you'd punch a whole bunch of numbers. But now, one number you got who you want. Mm-hmm. It's the speed in life has changed considerably, I find, because I'm getting old, so I'm slower. But looking at what's going on, and you stop and you think, where is this going? When is this going to stop wanting to be so fast and so do so many things?
Yeah, by the time you master, let's say, the phone or a computer or something, or a computer program, it's already outdated.
That's right.
No,
that's very true. It's all comes back to the same thing. Like we talked about the cochonnerie. People wanted to come. They wanted to come there. They wanted to do all those things. I think Sidney Neat was one of the principals. He might have been the king when Norma was on. But it was just so different. You were glad to see everybody. Here you go in there now, who you know? Not too many people.
It draws a lot of people from everywhere. Probably when it originally started, it was more of a community festival.
Oh, definitely.
And now, now that it's gotten this recognition, and us as tourism, we promote it to the world.
Okay, it's like a church fair. Those have changed. I mean, you pick up your meal when you go. You know, it's. That was years ago. This is a lot of years ago. They had ladies who made the cakes and stuff. There was one lady who made cream puffs. She was there and she made them right there. And she filled them up with the. She sold one to a little boy, and he went around the corner, and he sucked all the stuff out. He came back and he says, "Fill it up again."
Fill it up. That was sweet.
We had laughed about that so much. But that's what he wanted. He thought you just had to eat that one thing, stuff it
Exactly.
up. But it I don't know. What else we gonna talk about?
The year of the original Simsport Bridge, which also had the train tracks on it, that was built and opened. So I would like for y'all to have a little conversation about that and any stories that come up in popping up in
I
that.
think anybody over the age of 75 probably remembers going to Baton Rouge and crossing that bridge in Simsport when you had to drive on these little bitty 1 foot tracks with the train track in the middle. And if the train was coming, you had to back out off the bridge to let the train pass. And there are many stories about the construction of the bridge. It was built from barges in the river. They actually had barges with some of the construction stuff in the river, and they built it there. And you remember? Do you remember crossing that bridge?
Very well. And I'm trying to remember something. The man who was in charge of building that, I don't remember his
William
name.
Edenborn.
He was married to a lady from Mansura, wasn't he? A Rule, Roule.
Well, Edenborn was the financier of the railroad bridge, but I don't know who the contractor was. It could be. Could have been.
Elo Rule.
I didn't know that.
That comes back to me because they lived in Mansura and he went back and forth to take care of it. I can't remember his name. What did name you said?
William Edenborn was the financier of
No, that's not what I remember. But he came for that purpose to build a bridge. I'll have to think about that one.
So how did you know that the train was coming? Was there any signals or anything, or it was just a visual?
It was mostly a video. They had a flagman who worked on one end of the bridge, and if he waved the flag, then you knew to pull off to let the train go by. But sometimes people were on the bridge when the train was coming, so they had to back down from the bridge. And the cars must have had 6 inches between each car, one going one way and one coming the other, and the railroad track in between. It was a wild ride. And you could hear the noise would go clank, 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 clank.
Oh, yeah.
I can still hear it now.
Clang, clang, clang,
Yeah.
clang, 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 clang. That was the good old days.
And it's amazing because the car tires fit on this little bitty metal track that was probably no more than 12 inches wide, maybe 15 inches wide. And you had to keep the car on that because if you got off of it, you either got on the railroad track or you hit the side of the bridge. It was treacherous. But
And the cars at that time didn't have air conditioning and they didn't have heating.
No.
You heated a brick to go where you wanted to go.
And it's a turn bridge. It's called a turn bridge where if a boat is coming, the center part of the bridge actually rotates and ends up perpendicular to the.
I was always scared to go on that thing. Ooh.
Well,
I wished I could have avoided it.
I remember one of my favorite memories is Mr. Ed Dubrock's daughter, Carmen, was Sugar Bowl queen back in 1963 or 64 maybe. And we were going to, he invited a couple of us high school friends of hers to go to the Sugar Bowl. And we rode with him to New Orleans. And it started snowing. And going across this bridge in the snow was something else because you didn't see snow much then. We finally made it to New Orleans, and
Wayne, how old are you?
I'll be 80 years old in May.
think back. Don't think about your occupation, what you've done with that. Think back about how things were more pleasant, were easier. You knew more about your local people. You were actually happier.
Well, I think that I grew up in the best times of this country, frankly. I had the best teachers in school. We had all the communities were real communities. We all knew each other. I never knew the real names of most of the people in Mooresville because they all had nicknames. And but it was wonderful. We were committed to our church, our school, and our community. We did all our shopping in our community. We did everything.
Can we talk about Mardi Gras?
Okay.
Monday and Tuesday off.
No.
We went to school on
Oh,
Mardi Gras.
absolutely. The image of Mardi Gras when I was growing up, I was in the first grade or second grade, I don't know, at Moorville High School, was this horse-drawn wagon pulling people, just citizens from Mooresville, dressed in Mardi Gras masks and everything, coming riding in front of the school, and that was our Mardi Gras. We didn't skip school though.
In a wagon.
In a wagon.
That's how we had it.
Yeah.
They'd come in there, and the young men would jump off and start scaring us, and we'd run. We were going to Our Lady of Victory School, and we just dreaded that. But we never missed Monday and Tuesday. We went to school all those days, but it was always something like that that would get you. And on the way back from school, they knew what time to come. And they were in this wagon with a horse that was rolling around. They'd stop the horse, they'd jump off, and they'd start after you. We were
Well,
scared.
and people
We
used
were
to
scared to death.
wear, they'd have these hats and masks and these kind of capes or
They
something.
had old clothes that was
Yeah.
cut up and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything bought.
No.
So it was more of the tradition of what South Louisiana
Exactly.
versus the flamboyance.
Exactly.
So they wear the capuchons and the tattered clothes as they do in the South
In
and
Mamou
Southwest
and that
and,
area.
and the Eunice area.
Right,
yes.
correct.
And then you were just saying how that you would not get off for school,
No.
of school to go to attend all of this. But I do remember getting off for All Saints Day. I mean, I know it's a different, you know, the schools would close down, so you could attend church and the All Saints services because of the Catholicism in the.
Well, they used to.
And unlike that now, I mean, because we just finished that celebration, if you want to, and then the Solemnity of All Souls Day. But I mean, you would not have had the day off if it would have been a school day.
Well, through high school, when I was a senior in high school, they were still picking us up on Friday afternoons about a school bus and taking us to the church for catechism. You know, so it was all part of a community that participated in everything. You know, I remember riding my bicycle in the morning to serve mass, and. You know, that went on until I was a senior in high school, and but it was a fun time to live. We didn't have much, but we sure did a lot as children.
Right. I was telling them we did a good old days talkathon. That's something I rigged up. We did it on schools. We found 43 games. We have on 43 games we played, and it was all good games. We had a whole bunch of people involved in them, and it was real nice. But man, put it this way, I wouldn't want to be raising a child today.
Well, it's difficult, I have to say. It's just different. You know, I don't know. I have a granddaughter who's a senior in high school right now, and it's just different. They just, you know, they have cars You know, we had to ask
And
to
they have
use the
this.
car.
They have this.
Yeah.
I went to a restaurant not long ago, and they talking to each other, or they talking to other people. Why be there if you're not going to talk? It's very different, my dear.
It's a different world.
I
but
went to-
you adapt.
I went to the basketball game at Charter last night. My granddaughter's a cheerleader for St. Joe. And I went to pay to get in. Well, we don't take any money. I said, well, what do you take? Well, you have to buy the ticket over the phone, bring your phone, and we'll download it, and
scan the QR code.
they don't handle any money. So, and that's the same way I think now. I think at LSU, at Tiger Stadium, you can't bring any money with you because they don't take it.
And I think in the school systems, it's even like that for lunch.
Could be.
Now
Yeah.
you load up your account from your phone,
and they just subtract
and
it.
they just subtract from that account.
I don't know.
And every weekend, there wasn't a Saturday or Sunday that we didn't have a neighborhood baseball game or football game in the schoolyard. We didn't have to ask permission to go. We just went.
And what they want to get. What they want to get, and it doesn't take long.
And you just knew to be home at dark.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You left in the morning and you had lunch at whoever's house you were at.
We lived
everybody ate at the same table at the same time.
in Moorville. We lived on Highway 1. There was my grandfather's house, his son, Raymond, his son, Paul Frere, we called him. It was Fulgence Jr., Mom and Daddy. That was one of the brothers. Then Uncle Alan, then Uncle Lester. There were 12 first cousins living within 100 yards of each other. There wasn't a tree that didn't have a tree house in it, or a fence that wasn't pillaged that we made Tommy guns out of, and machine guns. And it was just wonderful. We played all day long, and my aunt Claire had a bell at lunch, and she'd ring it at 12 o'clock, and we knew to go home. And then at 1 o'clock we'd get back together.
And come home by dark.
Yeah, on a bicycle too. You know,
I'll say it this way: them was the good old days. Oh.
Well, there was some good things and there was some hard things too.
We had no money. That was.
Well, that was what I was talking about to somebody today. I hated to ask Daddy for anything because he'd say, "Well, go pick some cotton," and I did. It's hard to believe. People don't think that someone like me would have picked cotton, but I did. To buy some tennis shoes, some Converse tennis shoes to play basketball. Daddy didn't have the money, and the only way I could get it was to pick cotton or pick pecan.
Any plane that went over the peninsula, if it was one plane, if it was two planes, whatever it was, which way was it going, what kind of plane it was, and we had to report that
Is that right?
to the air base in LA. You didn't know that, huh?
No. But
very few people do that. But every town had somebody appointed, and Junior was appointed, and he taught me how to do it because he would be off sometime and he wouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. But if it was two, if it was one, if it was six, and you had to know what kind and where they were going, which side.
Daddy was too old to be drafted to go into World War II, but they hired him to teach mechanics at Fort Beauregard in Alexandria.
Air base.
Air Base, yeah. Or what was, there were two camps there, Camp Beauregard, and there was another camp, I forgot the name of it. But he taught...
was it Claiborne?
It could be, but he taught mechanics there, and then when the war ended, he came back and opened his own shop. And He listen to this. He had a beer garden. He sold beer and a sandwich for 25 cents to the people who came to dance at the beer garden. It was a little juke hall, I guess, and a cleaners, a clothes cleaners. Now I don't know how those two got together, but that's what he did when he first came after the war. And
But like I said, there's a lot of things that went on, like the girls being there. I would have never known that. There's a little girl's dad was going to fight, and he wanted to see her before he left, and she was in California. We put her on the train one night with a big sign that said, "My name is Felicia Peoples. I'm going to California to see my dad. Please help me." And we instructed her not to take that off. Put her there in Shreveport on the train. 4 days later, her mama called, she had made it. Would you try that today?
oh yes,
I guess not.
back in the 50s, and they took me. They had come to visit us one summer, and I drove back to Odessa with them in the car. No air conditioning, of course. 4 of us in the back seat. It was hot. They put me on the train to come home in Odessa, and I might have been 11, I guess, maybe not 10 or 11 years old. And I'll never forget falling asleep, and I woke up, and this lady was sitting next to me, and she asked me where I was going, and I said, I'm going to Louisiana. And we had not moved but about 100 yards. The train, I don't know why, but I made it to Bunkie. Daddy came and picked me up in Bunkie. You just don't hear about people doing that much anymore.
We're going to talk all kind of ways.
All kinds of ways. Y'all talk to
You
me about
remember the Blue Moon?
Daddy and Mama went there, but
One, right, you remember John Roy, who was in
Yeah.
charge of
yeah,
we had a date, John and I, and he decided he'd bring another, for New Year's Eve, he decided he'd bring another couple. So we got along fine, and we went to Blue Moon. We had a real good time, but after we sang Happy Birthday, Happy New Year, it was time to go home.
yeah.
Couldn't find Charles. Couldn't find him anywhere. He was the other man. It took us an hour. We finally found him under a table in the kitchen, drunk as a coot. Well, we kind of drug him around, and 2 men helped John, and we put him in the car. When we got to Mansura, he dropped the girl off first, then he dropped Charles off, then he dropped me off. Well, by that time it was 4 o'clock.
Yeah, because it took
My
2
daddy-
hours to
my
get from
daddy-
Bunkie to
my daddy
Mansura.
opened the door and he looked at me. He said, "Master says 6." That's all he had to say. I didn't go to bed. I stayed up till 6.
Uh-huh.
But those were the days that you had to do all those things. And the Blue Moon was the place to go.
Yep.
Now, there was one in Marksville, but I don't remember what that one was.
I remember Mom and Daddy talking about the Blue Moon. They used to go there.
Oh,
Mr. What was his name?
Those days.
Y'all talk to me about the flood of 1927. I know that's going to celebrate 100 years.
Yeah,
in
I was not alive then, so
Right,
I know that.
But there were stories.
Oh yeah, Mama lived in. It was. I guess she must have been around. She was born in 1915, so she must have been about 12 years old. So
Where were you living, Moorville?
no, Mom. I'm talking about my mother.
Yeah.
She was living in Simsport. Well, they
They
lost their
flooded.
home on the river. They had a home on the
Well-
river. They lost that, and they moved to Mansura and stayed in tents for I don't know how many months until they could get back.
Mansura and Marksville are considered the prairie.
Mm-hmm.
We're up higher
Right.
than Bartleville, Simsport, Moorville, Bunkie, Plocherville, and those people flooded.
Yeah.
And they came up, and the army took over. They had a bunch of tents that they put up, and they were in our yard, our pasture. And people from Bartleville were the main people that were there. They were used to having coffee early in the morning, but the commissary didn't open until 8. So they took Mama's fence apart and they built a little fire and they made their
They
coffee.
made their own coffee.
But the funniest part was she had 2 cows. Mama had always 2 cows. One of them wasn't giving milk. So she tried to see what was going on, and they were milking her cow to get milk for the coffee. So the army put a man with a gun walking around with the cow. That was the story they always told about the flood.
The Moorville High School was being built in 1926. It was designed by W.T. Nolan, architect from New Orleans, and it was it had just finished in 1927. It hadn't opened yet, and the flood came, and there are pictures of the water up to the the windows, and then after the flood receded, then they redid the stuff and opened the school, I think
Well, I remember them talking about the Moorville School. There was a lot of talk about that.
It was designed as a consolidated school, you know. It was supposed to consolidate Bartleville, Simsport, Plocherville, and
It's all that area.
all that area.
Plocherville.
Yeah. That's why it had a stage and an auditorium. But some of these schools, like Cottonport, never had an auditorium. I don't think Mansura did either.
Well, Manson and Marks are a Prairie, and the others are by. Do you remember Sister Maxalinda she was principal of St. Joseph for a while? Well, in the 27th flood, Father J.V. Plochet, who was her uncle, came and picked her up in Plocherville. He says, pack your suitcase, I'm taking you somewhere. He took her to San Antonio to become a nun. She wasn't a nun, she was a nun. And he told her, he says, don't come back. He says, stay and be a nun. And she died as a nun in old age. But things like that happen, and nobody gave it a thought. She didn't fuss, her mom and daddy didn't fuss. She was safe, and that was it.
It was accepted.
Yeah. Well, my grandfather lost his house. They were living on the river, on the Atchafalaya River at the time. They lost everything. House was washed away into the Atchafalaya. And at the same time, that's when the bridge was being built, and they had to halt construction because of the flooding. People were, there were no levees, very few. There were some small levees, but they didn't do much of anything. And so that people just moved, they just moved to Mansur and lived in tents.
There was no question. They told you to do this and you did it. That was it. You didn't.
And wasn't there one of the presidents came down here? Who was president? Hoover? Not Hoover. Who was president in 1927? President.
Ooh.
There's a picture of him here in Mansura. Miss Truax used to have that picture of him.
It's in the Crossroads of Avoyelles
Yes,
book,
yeah.
I think.
I think it was Hoover.
That's an amazing thing right there.
I know.
That is an amazing thing. I told him something this morning.
Referred to a section of the road in Moorville as La Côte d'Or, you know. And for years, well, that's a French word, Côte d'Or. And Daddy said, well, no, it means cut off. It was a slang, you know, and that's the way they spoke in slang. You know, they would say a few words in French and then interject an English word in the middle of the sentence, you know.
You know those calls that are being made now for Medicare and Medicaid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't qualify because I'm too old. Last week, one time, yesterday, I decided I'd talk French to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I had a blast. I talked about what I ate, what the sunshine was doing, just anything. Man, They hang up on me.
Sad, but they would laugh, and we would laugh too, and not knowing what we were laughing at. But that, I remember, those were really fun times, sitting around with the family, speaking in French, and just enjoying each other's company. There was nothing else to do but visit, you know, laver.
Loving.
Yeah.
I know the holiday train is going to come to Simsport in December of
December 3rd.
this year. And Ms. Barbara, this is something you might be
might wanna
interested in. Maybe you want to go and see this, because the rail system was such many years ago was just basically a way of transportation.
Right.
I mean, of course, there were no airports here, but I mean that was a way of getting people and moving people around.
Well, it was it was the impetus for a lot of communities to, like Bunkie. Bunkie grew up around the railroad. If it had not been for the railroad, there would be no Bunkie. And that was common throughout. That's why you had all these little small communities crop up, because people travel by rail. You know, I remember when I was I was first married, we took the train from New Orleans to Houston to visit our cousins. You know, we'd bring fried chicken with us and eat it on the train. But you know, I would love to see passenger trains come back, but I don't know if that's
I'd
ever
like
going to
to
happen.
take. I've taken several long ones. I'd like to take another. The nicest part about it to me is the dining room. It's so nice to sit and you just go on along the line. You see all kinds of things, and you're eating at the same time. It's
Several years ago, I took my grandchildren to Chicago. We took the train in Hammond, and we got sleeper compartments. You know, there were 6 of us, I think, 5 or 6 of us, and we took the train to Chicago overnight, and went to Chicago, stayed a week, and then we came back on the train. The food was delicious. There was a chef. It's called the New Orleans Special or something like that. They had gumbo, crawfish as part of the meals, you know. But
and whoever waited on you was in uniform.
yes, yeah.
Oh, I'll never forget that. They were in uniform.
Yeah.
Well,
I rode about a month ago. I was in Canada working from Toronto to Quebec City. So when they moved us from Toronto to Montreal, we did a train ride. And as you just mentioned, the food was excellent. It's like it used to be. I mean, and the service was absolutely wonderful. I mean, this train, I mean, because it was like a 5-hour ride that we had.
Yeah.
The commute was about 5 hours. So I mean, we didn't go to a dining car. It was served to you at your seat. It was absolutely wonderful. And the food was actually good.
Yeah.
yes, very good.
The food was very good. The wine was good. So it was just a wonderful, pleasant.
So you went for what purpose? Just to promote?
Promoting
tourism?
Avoyelles Parish and Louisiana. We worked as a group. We were 21 people.
Wow.
That went on that trip, and we were just trying to build our conversations back with Canada, because
I know.